Next online, we have on Zoom at the moment, I believe, Harry Adams, Executive Chairman of Kefi Gold and Copper.
Good day, everybody. I believe there's a PowerPoint master in the room who will put the PowerPoints up under my direction. But just before we get going, let me say I'm talking to you from Ethiopia. I will give you a little bit of what I'd call technical background on the projects, but I'll try to more particularly give you a sense of the context of doing business in Ethiopia and the let's call it the sovereign issues on being the first mover in Ethiopia. I think the characteristics technically of our projects are very well understood by most within the industry, and certainly our gold project in Ethiopia is very much a typical West Australian style gold project. But without any further ado, could the slide be put up on the screen, please? That's our Ethiopian project is called Tulu Kapi. It's a 1 million ounce gold reserve, 15 million tonnes at 2.1 gram head grade, 93% metallurgical recovery, 140,000 ounces a year. The lead project finance bank has issued its full credit committee approval. The lead equity investors have issued their board approvals. So it's, let's say, very, very close to being able to trigger development, due diligence having been completed, and the lead investors on the debt and equity side having given their key approvals. So, what's it all about? Well, what you can see here is the Tulu Kapi hill popping up above the morning fog, and a quiet rural district in Western Ethiopia. The community here is very, very strongly aligned with the project. We've done everyone today talks about ESG, which is terrific, but our exploration camp has been on the top of that hill for the last 15 years, and we've always had very strong community support. We are the community is us. I'll also talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia. I know it's technically not Africa, but I'll just talk a little bit about it towards the end of the presentation. Could I have the next slide, please? The next one, please. Okay, that's some of the companies that are particularly in Ethiopia, and one or two of them in Saudi Arabia. What does this say? It says that the two largest gold producers in the world and a whole bunch of other people who want to get in first are here. It's, how would I say, an incredibly committed bunch of companies, all of them raring to get going in two jurisdictions, Ethiopia and Saudi Arabia, that are bursting to get going on this sector. And they both suffered some false starts, for want of a better expression, on getting the sector going. And I'll elaborate on that as we go. If anybody would be interested to talk about industry issues in Ethiopia or Saudi, or industry association issues, you're more than welcome to get in contact. Thanks. Next slide, please. We are very much the manager of joint ventures, of local joint ventures. You know, in Saudi Arabia, we're not called Kefi, we're called Golden Minerals. We're the manager and 1/3 owner of a powerful joint venture, in which a large conglomerate is the major shareholder. It's like owning 1/3 of a giant pie. To us is more important than owning a majority of a small pie. In Ethiopia, we're the majority owner, 2/3 and a bit owner, with the government as our principal partner, but also there'll be some local private as well. And very, very much, I'm very much of the view, having lived and breathed these two countries from the point of view of this industry, of the view that if we didn't have those strong alignments and relationships, we wouldn't be in first mover position in Ethiopia and not far behind that in Saudi Arabia. In the last 12 months, we've doubled the underlying asset value of the company from the point of view of NPV type calculations, partly because the way we've come at the financing in Ethiopia, we've increased our beneficial interest there quite a lot, from 45 target to 70. But also in Saudi Arabia, we've made a significant discovery. We're only just early days of drilling it out, but it's already got a higher metal content than Tulu Kapi in Ethiopia. It's a VMS, copper, gold, zinc, silver, analogous to one not that far down the road, which is in production. As I say, it's early days. So the company's been increasing its underlying asset base whilst it's getting the show on the road, you might say. In terms of getting the show on the road, this next quarter is really quite an important quarter for us, because we expect the financing syndicate to meet in Ethiopia in October, when there'll be quite a number of watershed, let's say, milestones accomplished in the country, which I'll talk about in a moment, for the go decision to get on with it. And over in Saudi Arabia, we'll be updating the resource. We declared a maiden resource last year after only 9 months of drilling the VMS, and we'll update that. We've done a lot of infill drilling, so a lot of it's to do with upgrading from inferred to indicated, but also there'll be some extra tons and the grades increased a bit. Next slide, please. This is sort of saying the same thing, but in a graphic sense and against market analogues. To cut a long story short, what it says here is that we're in the early stage of de-risking a project. We're past discovery, we're into financing and on one and into development planning on the other. So we're a fair way down the pathway, but we're still in early days in terms of market rating. And as we de-risk, there's a 10 bagger or more in it over the next 2 years, as one comes on stream with production in Tulu Kapi and the other one comes on stream for development in Hawiyah following production in Tulu Kapi. So we'll end up with two starter mines, one in Ethiopia first and then the one in Saudi Arabia. And there's inherent organic growth in both of them. The underground deposit in Tulu Kapi is open and it's already economic for development. So that's obviously the next cab off the rank there. And over in Hawiyah, we're still in early days in defining the extent of this VMS system. Next slide, please. This slide deserves a bit more time. And that's because I suspect you've all heard a lot more about Ethiopia on international news media than perhaps you've ever heard before. And, what's it all about? What's going on? Why so much attention and so on? And I must say, without getting into any details, that the media on this has been, for someone who's in the country, for someone who I think understands the country reasonably well, I'd have to say the media reporting on it has been about as sloppy and as biased as I've ever seen. So it's important to convey a few key points, at least as I see them. First of all, Ethiopia is terribly important. Anybody who's interested in Africa must keep an eye on Ethiopia. It's the base for the African Union. It has more embassies here than perhaps anywhere other than New York, London, and Brussels. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was at that sort of ranking. Every major NGO would be here. All the major media groups are here. Anyone who wants to deal with Africa will think about Ethiopia from time to time. And certainly industrial groups who have consumer products who want to work in Africa and be part of the growth of this high growth continent will have to have presence in Ethiopia. It's also the second highest population on the continent. So all the major multinational consumer goods groups are here. Some of them have been here for decades. That's a scale thing, a political thing, a cultural thing, but also strategically, it is the stabilizer in the Horn of Africa. It's always been seen as that, and it always has been that. It provides more UN troops, peacekeeping troops, than any other country in the world. So it's a stabilizing country. You wouldn't have thought that from the media reporting. It's been in the world's top 10 growth countries for 20 years running, and that's not going to change. It was Ethiopia yesterday, it is Ethiopia today, and it will be Ethiopia tomorrow. Having said all that, mining is a brand new sector, and frankly, the system hasn't really attuned to us yet, and it's been very challenging to get the show on the road here. So it's been quite a challenging period for us, because Ethiopia's gone from central autocratic rule over the last 5 years to this crazy thing called democracy, where I don't quite know how to turn off all my other communication devices while I'm talking to you live. So am I still on properly here, James? Yeah. Now, in Ethiopia, the thing that's grabbed a lot of attention during the course of the year is the conflict in the north of the country, and that is essentially a group of about 5 or 6% of the population of the country have attempted, if you like, to make a power grab, and it's created all sorts of turmoil inside the country. And we've basically been awaiting the triggering of the project whilst it settled down, which it has been doing. It peaked earlier in the year. The government, the first major democratic elections were a couple of months ago. You had people queuing half the night and half the day to cast their first democratic vote here. It was incredible to see. And the government has declared unilaterally a ceasefire up north. It's defending the neighbouring regions up there, and various initiatives are taking place with neighbouring countries gathering around to help stabilise the northern part of Ethiopia. We are over 1,000 kilometres away from all of this, so you wouldn't know it in peaceful Tulu Kapi, but nevertheless it has dominated international media, and we've wanted the country to settle down, and it is doing so now. There'll be the new government team formed up this month, and new policies. The African Union's appointed a mediator, so I think that that chapter has passed in any substantive sense. So the direction is now clear, lots of repairing to do, humanitarian, political, economic, and for us to get the show on the road for ourselves. The next slide, please. The Ethiopian mining sector hasn't had a major development for 30 years as an active artisanal sector, but Tulu Kapi was the first industrial scale mine. The Ministry for Mines has been very active, trying to, in their eyes, cleaning out people who are not getting on with it, cancelling lots of licenses that weren't performing, using a bit of a big stick approach, if you like, but also issuing new licenses and doing its best to, move people along if it can. Obviously very challenging for a bunch of new companies to get going when the system isn't quite attuned to us, but nevertheless, it is happening, and we will get going now. In terms of how do we do it, there's no magic. On the ground, intense presence, a team out at site dealing with local government and community continually, daily, and a team in Addis Ababa dealing with federal and regional headquarter government and local partners daily. We just stick at it. We're noted for tenacity and patience, and no shortcuts. And we just stick to our guns, excuse the pun, and we're just about there. In terms of the result for us is that we've got a $356 million project finance syndicate with the multilateral African banks who care about Ethiopia, with local investors who care about Ethiopia, and also specialist mining financiers who understand the game in Africa, second to none. And therefore it's quite a bespoke design, and you need to know the country and know your way around the country to do it properly. Next slide, please. Last December, we had a gathering of the clan, of the banks and the ministry and other officials out at the site. I think but for the Tigray conflict up north, which, as I say, hasn't affected us, but nevertheless affected everybody in the syndicate wanting to make sure the country settled down very quickly again, which it is. I think this visit was marking, okay, let's get on with it. And we would have got on with it some months ago. And I think it's been a proper cautious approach to make sure that before we press the button, everything's under control and ready. And that's what I think we'll be deciding in a couple of months. Next one, please. Now, Saudi Arabia, not a lot of preoccupation with introducing democracy in Saudi Arabia, but it's a very stable country and very much wedded to developing the mineral sector also to be the third pillar of its economy. And we have made 2 discoveries here. One, and both of them in early days of the drill out. So they'll both grow over time. Jibal Qutman, the gold discovery, is stuck in a regulatory quagmire, so we put that on the back burner. But Hawiyah can be fast-tracked, and that's what we're doing. And actually, it's a lot bigger. Anyhow, VMS and early days, but it's already past the threshold of being economic. Next slide, please. We've just completed our phase 4 drilling, as I mentioned earlier, to infill drill as well as expand resource. I might skip to the next slide because I think to the experienced eye, it's important. Next slide, please. Now that's a part of a gossan at the surface of, at 4.5 kilometre length. And now you can walk along that and see some green staining for copper. And you can rock chip it pretty well anywhere, or trench it pretty well anywhere and find gold. And not one drill hole was put in it until we came along. This thing would have been drilled over a century ago in Australia. And to me, that tells an incredible story about the scale of potential of walk-up drill targets in Saudi Arabia. And the country has had them under sort of lock and key because it didn't really need to develop them, but now it's prioritizing developing them. So that's a sort of a little picture that tells 1,000 words, I think, that if you're on the ground with a powerful conglomerate as your partner, and we've already been there over a decade, we've got a very powerful proprietary database. It's an incredible opportunity for exploration and development as the sector gets turned on, and it has recently been turned on. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to present at ADU, and thank you very much for the opportunity, and all the best to everyone in Australia.